Yes, yes. Oh, you know what that sound means. It's time for In the Paddock F1, Greenie and the Cheese. We are back in those Austrian Alps in the state of Syria and Spielberg. But that's not for Steven, by the way. For the 19th time, we race at the Red Bull Ring for the Austrian Grand Prix. Styria, Austria, known for its wine, spas. Oh, I could use some of that right now. My back is killing me. The castles. It's the birthplace of Arnold Schwarzenegger. But this ain't no travel show. This is an F1 show. We're racing the Red Bull Ring. 2.68 miles, 10 corners. It's really 9. One's just a kink. 3 DRS zones. You give it the full beans for 70% of your lap. And what a race we saw. It was penalty filled. Stay within the white lines, gentlemen, please and thank you. But Max takes the win. Maximum points as well with the sprint win and the fastest lap on the final lap. Leclerc takes second. Ferrari's 800th podium in F1. Perez is a good drive after a mess of a Friday and takes third. We're caffeinated. We're medicated. Greenie. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, man. Yeah, I think I can go for a relaxing spa, long holiday. Penalties, man. Penalties. Drives you mad. And then all those orange marbles at the end of that race. Did you see that? I love the overhead shot of all the people running in their orange, running across the track.
That was funny.
Through the gate.
Hurting them like cattle.
Over the white lines. It's pretty wild stuff, man. And I love the bull. That bull's very intimidating.
Well, it's the Red Bull Ring. It better have a bull.
It is the Red Bull Ring, the Austrian Grand Prix. We saw, and Max conquered. Yeah, it was a Red Bull weekend. It was a sprint race weekend. I was very confused. I know you told me to read, which I probably should have read how it was going to work, because it was definitely something different. I didn't like it at all. I thought it was ridiculous. I was confused at first what was going on. But yeah, I figured it out at the end. It's 2 races, separate. I have a lot of ideas about that.
I can't wait to hear those.
I have a lot of ideas, and we'll get to those as well. But Max just again dominated his most dominant track that he has, the most dominant, I guess. He's won 25% of every single of the Austrian Grand Prix ever raced. So yeah, he is the king of that ring. And once again, he absolutely dominates. And very interesting, very exciting race. Lap 16 mayhem with tire changes. A late potential rain coming in, which was always interesting, especially after this race. Ferrari cannot double stack like Red Bull can double stack. That's for sure. And what else did I learn today? Oh yeah, Haas stinks, and we're not talking about him for the rest of the show.
They do stink. They actually had a pretty decent car too. They actually had a pretty decent car for the weekend. It showed a little pace. And they give you a little glimpse. A little tease for you, Michael. A little tease. They just dropped the ball on Sunday. Totally dropped the ball.
I threw my hat.
Oh, you gotta go more. Come on. I want more.
I said I'm not talking about Haas for the rest of the show. It was ridiculous. At least they came away with points from that ridiculous, I guess it's a sprint race now. I didn't understand any of it at all. I guess they went to that format because you qualify and then you have the race and then so it's a requalification. So I guess nobody liked that. So they went to this sideshow, which it's just a sideshow. It's so weird. It's very, to have the Friday quali for the Sunday race and then sandwiched in between is another race.
with a separate quality.
Which is separate quality, which can definitely affect the driver. It's just more time in the car for the driver and more time on the track and competition for the driver. That's a lot. That's a lot on the driver's body already. It takes a lot out of the driver. So, but Haas, I don't know what happened. Like, at least they got those points. But in the race, because Nico looked good, K-Mag didn't look terrible throughout the weekend. Both of them had their moments. I think K-Mag definitely drove a little bit better at the beginning of that race, but completely, it was a disaster. It was an absolute disaster in the end. A 19th and 20th. We're going back, 5 years ago. That's what it felt like today. Just completely uncompetitive the entire day. And Nico Hülkenberg was I'm not saying he was going to score points, but you're expecting at least 12 at worst. I was expecting points. I was expecting 9th or 10th. And I don't know. I don't want to get mad about it. Maybe I'll get mad about it later. But this is not a Haas show. It's ridiculous. Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez coming from all the way behind. And have we not mentioned, I'm going to turn it over to you to end this segment, the ponies.
Well, it was a good weekend for Ferrari. It was a good weekend. Didn't have the pace in the end for Carlos to stay in front of Sergio, but he definitely held up Sergio to absolutely let Leclerc get that second place finish, which was that's a big finish. That's a big finish. They show pace. Don't have the race pace that the Red Bull has, but they're getting closer for the quali pace. But quali's quali, race pays the bills. So still some ground to go there. But definitely a better weekend. The double stack was an absolute disaster. I mean, just 2 back-to-back awful pit stops. Awful 4+ second pit stops. That's disgusting. That's awful in Formula One. But the car had pace. New upgrades seem to absolutely have worked. But it's just a Red Bull show. Max Verstappen is just unreal and ridiculous. Sunday drives. Good strategy call. That's just Red. It's and they did just the pit stops. What are we're watching the race together and it was like at 2.3, 2.4. You're almost calling it. You're almost calling it. And at each stop. So
and you know what's amazing? At the end of the race, it took, I think, Christian Horner put that entire team on check when he brought Max in with a lap to go. Just coming out at 4 seconds to spare. There could not have been a mistake, not a tire. Every single person had to be on call, on task. And he brought Max in to say just that. And they did it. That was very risky. Very risky.
A lot of things can go wrong.
Anything could have gone wrong. And they did it, and they pulled it off, and Christian Horner put everyone on task, and I mean, not that it would have affected Max's season of runaway.
No, pretty, yeah.
But, ultimately, but he put the team on task, and they came through, and like they did all day, I'm like 2.3, 2.5, you know what it's going to be. With Ferrari, roll the dice.
Yeah.
3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds.
Well, then they'll throw in, then they'll come back, next race and throw, 2.3, 2.4, 2.5s. But that was just a disaster. That was awful.
It was awful. And it probably prevented potentially a double podium because Carlos Sainz did.
He had pace early. He definitely had pace early.
Yeah, pace.
I don't think he had the pace later in the race on the hards as much as a teammate did. But he definitely had some pace.
Yeah, and he battled. There was some questionable braking in the braking zones, but he battled. Carlos Sainz and Sergio Perez battled.
Well, that's because Sergio was just not thinking of the strategy there. If he would have just sat back there for that on the first attack and Instead of trying to get ahead at the that zone and just drop back a little bit and then have the DRS he would have had to put away earlier. But he did it lap after lap. He kept on giving Carlos the DRS coming out of 3.
Yeah, and he burnt those tires up a little bit.
And he burnt those tires up trying to get by him. All you had to do was like Max Verstappen is very tactical at that. Like he set that up early. When Leclerc was in the lead and he was coming up, he made sure that he's dropped back a little bit there for in turn 3, and made sure that he was the one that had DRS, not Leclerc. That's a tactical move. That's tactical. Tactical.
Yeah.
And that's a major difference in this season right now between Max and Perez.
It's a huge difference. It's a huge difference. And that's why they're driving the same car and Max is smoking them pretty much every single week. Especially in quality,
just consistency.
Crazy. Like, 4 straight qualities, is that right? That Sergio has not made it to Q1.
Is it 5? Is it 5 in a row? He hasn't got it at He hasn't got it at Q2.
Yeah, he hasn't got it at Q2.
I think it's like something like 5 in a row now or something.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. Anyway, we have a lot more to come, and of course, we are now finally uploading some videos up on the YouTube page. Just search Greeny and the Cheese. Find the YouTube page. And everything we do is free. Everything we do is for you. Check out all the episodes. I think we're 77, 78 episodes deep now. So check them all out. We'll be at 100 before you know it. So they're all free, all where you find your podcasts. Check us out, Greeny and the Cheese. Back in a moment. Yeah, that's right. We're back. And of course, I was just checking out myself the last episode of Greeny, or actually Cheese's Expeditions behind the wheel. How's that wheel feeling, Cheese? By the way, how's the new game feeling? F1 23.
New game feels great. I definitely like the driving model. We're struggling. Our teammates doing way better than us. We got to get our shit together and pick it up. That's straight up.
That's straight up right there. That's straight up. You better start scoring points.
We got to start scoring some points.
We are all rooting for you. And
but we got some upgrades coming. So we'll see what happens. Did just have a glitch in one of our episodes that'll be coming up soon. So
yeah, interesting. The glitches are the best part of the game. That's the most interesting. You should have. Did you get it recorded? Or you just
I did record it.
Ooh, we should throw that up there as a bonus. Little glitch. I
talk about it in there.
All right.
A little bit.
All right, a little bit,
but nothing crazy about it. But yeah, I talk about it. But yeah, glitch. So hopefully, next patch, I'll be taken care of. But anyway, instead of you stalling here as you do every week, let's get you strapped in. I'll hand you down your helmet. We'll fire up the car. We'll send you out.
Not feeling good about this one. Go ahead.
This is actually a pretty easy one.
Stop saying that.
To be honest, if you pay just a little bit of attention to the beginning, just a little.
No, it's not good.
Just a little. Plus, things were also said during the broadcast as we did watch the race together. The first one, you might get wrong because the broadcast was wrong.
Just give it to me.
But here we go. Question 1.
Mm-hmm.
Quizmaster's Cockpit. How many wins in a Grand Prix does Max have at the Red Bull Ring?
Is it 5?
That is incorrect. It is only 4. They said 5 in the broadcast, but it was wrong. He's only won 4. 18, 19, 21, and 23.
I think there should be some shared accountability there.
But it's wrong. You're wrong.
They're wrong too.
Well, Crofty's sometimes wrong.
God damn it.
Can't take him as Jesus. Well, I guess you're not going to get it this week then, are you?
Come on.
Question number 2.
Yeah, go ahead.
Leclerc got on the podium for Ferrari this week. How many podiums does Ferrari now have in Formula One?
800?
That is correct.
Bing.
Question 3. It's an easy one. It's right out of the opening. What percent of your lap do you give it the full beans at the Red Bull Ring?
72.
70%. Close, but no. You still don't pay attention.
No.
How many times do I have to tell you just to pay a little bit of attention at the beginning? A little bit. But no.
I need to slap my goddamn.
Slap myself. A little early.
That's a little early. Because you got 2 out of 3 wrong. That takes us to losers.
Good.
Yuki Tsunoda. Awful performance. His team also helped that out a little
The whole
bit.
team had an awful
The whole
performance.
team had an awful performance. But he finished behind DeVries, who's struggling to keep his job. So that's definitely not good enough. So Tsunoda, he kind of pretty much stunk. And I'm going to give it to Piastri. That's a bad performance. 17th, your teammate gets in the top 5. Yeah, your teammate did have the upgrades, but come on, upgrades can't be that much of that crazy amount of a difference.
Yeah, he's also been dancing with points over the last bunch of races. Anyway.
Well, that's a bad performance. That's a bad performance. You deny? That's a bad performance?
No,
It's a bad performance.
no, that's a bad job.
I mean, I could go on with a couple more, but I'll save some for you. But
Yeah.
There's also a lot of losers this week.
There's a bunch of losers this week, and I'm going to go to Lance Stroll on this one. He was kind of a mess out there after trying to come back strong, and Aston Martin should be way more competitive. I know, Alonso finished 6th, but once again, an old man is finishing ahead of you every single week.
They got the strategy wrong.
And
They got the strategy wrong. Both their drivers. They brought Fernando in during that virtual safety car late. Why, I don't know. He's on the hards. They should have went with that strategy. I mean, Red Bull stayed out and pushed it. Maybe taking away a top 5 for Alonso. And then with Stroll, who came on strong late, making moves and passing cars, they made a bad call there too and dropped him back. I think he was back to like 17th or something like that.
Mhm.
So I think the team kind of screwed him on that this week. They screwed both their drivers, in my opinion. So I don't know about loser that much for him, but definitely
I think the whole
finishing.
thing was a mess.
That was a mess for him. That was the whole team mess. That's another team that was a mess.
There was a bunch of teams. And I think Alpine as a whole, they're just out there in space, man.
I think that was a good finish for Gasly. And Ocon outside, what he finished 12th, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that wasn't a completely awful performance. I'd say another one, love the loser, Valtteri Bottas.
Well,
One of your favorites every week.
I don't know if he's my
Almost.
favorite every week. Sometimes he is because he's driving that dump. But then, I don't know. These back-end cars, every single race, are reacting differently to the different tracks. Austria is a very different track. It's much more of an incline. There's definitely a lot of different components of every single track. We've been to a very diverse field of tracks, and we're seeing a new era of cars, and we're seeing different results each week. Besides Max Verstappen, but behind Max Verstappen, who the heck knows what you're going to see behind Max? You're seeing everything. You're seeing Aston Martins on the podium. You're seeing Ferraris on the podium. You're seeing Mercedes on the podium. You're seeing double
Cars are different teams' cars are better at certain kinds of tracks versus other kinds of tracks, and that's what you're seeing a lot of that.
outside of Red Bull, who's just great at every track.
It's just great everywhere.
Yeah,
Pretty
everywhere.
much.
And that's what we've been seeing.
Well, I would say just Max Verstappen, really, because Sergio, he's thrown up a really nice race today, awful quality, so you never know what the heck you're going to get out of Sergio sometimes. But out of Max Verstappen in that car, you know where he's going to be pretty much, unless something goes wrong. unless the engine goes in that car, you can pretty much guarantee to say where Max is going to be.
Yeah.
Even in a track that they say they're not great, the car's not great at, they still smash.
They do.
They're still smashing everybody.
They do. Well, we got through losers, and I fumbled through losers there a little bit. But why don't you go to some winners?
Winners, Lando Norris, top 5 finish. Upgrades, but Lando's also pretty good here at Austria anyway. But it's a really good finish for McLaren overall, just to get a car that high up there. And Lando, great drive. I'm going to take it somewhere that maybe you'll be a little surprised, but performances have been just getting better and better lately. And I'm just going to give it to Williams overall. 11th and 13th.
Not surprised at all. Williams,
great finish for Sargent. That's his best finish in Formula One so far in 13th. Albon just didn't have the pace there late at the end, but definitely 11th, just outside the points. Definitely the Williams is coming. It keeps improving. We trashed him a few weeks ago with that disgusting under tray they got going on, but the car is very fast in a straight line. Probably one of the quickest on the grid, actually. And they keep just improving it weekly. And they got some pretty good drivers, I'd say, to be wheeling that car up there like that. So it's definitely going to give it up for Williams. And I'll stop there. I could go on with some others, but
go on forever. Listen, you got to give it to some mainstays, which are both Mercedes and Ferrari. And if you want a successful Formula One, you need Mercedes and Ferrari to be double scoring points every single race to make this a competitive league. When you have even one of those drivers outside of the points out of those 4 vehicles, it makes the entire Formula One just a different landscape. Thank goodness at least Lando Norris is scoring points. But with Aston Martin putting 2 cars in the points, Red Bull's obviously going to run away with this, but at least make it somewhat competitive and at least make really 2 through 6 very competitive in this
2
league.
through 4. I'd say the 2 through 4 battles, still going to be Mercedes, Ferrari, and Aston
for sure.
To be at this point, I think outside of that, then you got, the next group probably like Alpine, McLaren, probably duking it out for the next spot. Probably, to be honest.
Right, probably. But it's still a long season, a lot of races. We're about a third of the way now, a little more than a third of the way through. But I think you need these teams to show up and not have blunders, because we see what Red Bull does and they don't mess up. They don't make mistakes. And I don't know who in the back of the pack. I mean, Logan Sargent, as you mentioned.
It's a good drive for Logan.
A decent race.
That's a good drive for Logan.
But I think more kudos to Williams for getting better. Yeah. And I'm going to leave it with, of course, like I said before, Red Bull and having confidence in their entire team to bring Max in with a clear win, no doubt about win. And they bring him in anyway. And just so Christian Horner can show what a great team he has from top to bottom. And that brings us to only one more thing.
I need to slap my goddamn self for that.
Oh, this week's slap's going to AlphaTauri. I mean, we've seen it before in the season, so you really can't do it. Failure to serve your penalty. I mean, just keep your hands off the car for 5 seconds. It's not that hard. It's really not that hard. It's embarrassing. So get out that powder. Not even just one slap. That's a double slap. That's a front slap with the backhand coming back.
The backhand coming back. Watch for those knuckles.
But they get the slap.
All right.
I mean, I could give it to Haas too, but
we're not talking about Haas. Maybe next week. We'll talk about Haas again.
But AlphaTauri never gets a slap. So get out that powder, slap your goddamn selves.
Yeah, I would. Gunther Steiner was so arrogant and cocky, by the way, and every time they cut to him, he's just cocky. I can't. I can't. And then they go out and put that up. A 19th and a 20th. A 19th and a 20th. I'm going to grab that baby powder from your hand and go down to that paddock myself. But like I said, we're not going to talk about Haas until next race. All right. You got Greeny Bugs queued up in a moment here. We're going to hit that.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to have to hit something else before Greeny Bugs here. In the paddock, Greeny the Cheese. Back into this.
Yes, we're back in the paddock F1, greening the cheese. Oh, yeah. You know what that sound means. It's time to take that fantasy ride to that fantasy island of Greentopia, where the beer flows like wine and the wine flows like beer. And the cannabis grows as far as the eyes can see. Look at it. Look at it out there. Look at it. Wow. Green and luscious. Take a little whiff. That air smells fantastic. Take a little walk to the top of the hill, tickets in hand. That casino on the top. Are we cashing in? Or are we checking out?
Yeah. It's actually pretty decent. I think I caught up a few bucks here, but we both, of course, had Max for the win, which is like, even if that the slim pickings that you get back for the Max win, you still got to go for it. You still got to go for it because there's no one else is going to win. So you take the Max win. We both took Sergio for the biggest gainer.
Mm-hmm.
That was a little risky, potentially, but came through for both of us. And the trifecta, of course, as we both had it working. We both had it working, but we both missed it. You had Max and a double pony Leclerc Sainz. It looked good. It looked good.
It was close.
And I had a double bull, but I had Max, Perez, Leclerc. So I get a box, but not straight. But that doesn't count either. And it puts me finally back to even. So I'm back where I started. Scraped and clawed back, and I made it back to 5,000 greeny bucks where we started. You're at 5,800, so you're slowly making your way north as well. 5,800 greeny bucks, right on the dot. No one's knocking on your door. No one's knocking on my door either. I'm even. I'm even with the bookies who hide in the cannabis crops.
Yeah, I was talking to Bob and Steve before. They got some new stuff coming, so we'll see.
Oh yeah. Well, hopefully I can pay my debts here. And with that,
it's time for In the News.
You got some news articles
I
up?
do have a couple things for you here. Couple questions. Was announced today, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Austria's renewed until 2030. What's your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I'd like to see other tracks besides Austria, besides the Red Bull Ring. It seems like a really big homer track. It seems like there's a couple of big Max homer tracks, and I think this is all about Max Verstappen and Red Bull's success right now. I'm not a fan.
I actually don't have a problem. I'm going to tell you why. What do you get just about every race at the Red Bull Ring? Passing and a lot of excitement. A lot of crazy things going on. A lot of different strategies. Throw a little rain in there. Definitely throws a little extra, little monkey in the wrench up there in Austria because the rain comes in over the mountains. But I like it. I wish it was a little longer. Maybe had a few more turns.
9 turns.
But the track, it definitely gives some action.
This is NASCAR.
There's a lot of action.
All right, next article.
With a 15th place finish, did De Vries save his job for a bit?
Yeah, I think he did. I don't think. I think it was an idle threat at the moment. I mean, who's planning on replacing him?
I can throw Ricardo in there.
Exactly. So if you had someone that you were excited about instead of the guy who's like doing the play-by-play in the booth with whoever hell he's with.
Oh, I forget what was it, Arnett or something like
Yeah,
that?
Will Arnett in the booth.
Yeah,
all right.
that was a mess.
The guy from the booth is who you want to replace him with. When you can come up with someone better than the guy from the booth, then I'm listening.
I don't know who else is out there. Give Mick Schumacher a call.
You can make a call. Ring, ring.
I don't think they want to bring him into the Red Bull thing though. He just joined Mercedes, so
I mean, we're gonna call Kimi Räikkönen up. Like, who are you going to?
I don't know.
Exactly. So when you have a decent replacement, when you show up with someone that might be able to drive that car better than Nick DeVries,
who's dominating F2. Get my teammate in my Fantasyland video game there. You Teo Pourchaire.
all right, go ahead. All right. So AI, your solution is AI. Great. All right. Next article. Showing up the guy from the video game.
Well, he's a real driver.
You're referring to the artificial intelligence version now.
No, I'm referring to the real guy, but anyway.
And anyways, right. Keep going. You got anything else?
Yeah. How much has Williams impressed you this season?
I was thinking about that today when we were watching the race, and I don't know if it's Williams top to bottom has been impressive. They quietly, unlike Haas, who doesn't quietly do anything, they quietly put together a team where they created a sense around the organization where there's low expectations and higher results than expected. I think Alex Albon deserves a great car, but Williams is just like a legendary brand, and I don't see why Williams in some reality can show up with some cash and be back to way Williams was only 8 years ago or so, maybe less.
I think it's been a little bit longer than that since Williams was.
Well, not
something.
like championship, at least consistently scoring points.
Yeah.
Who was the last lineup that was good? Bottas and Massa?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Probably. Like, what was that? 2014?
Probably something like that, yeah.
Something like that. It's almost a decade ago that they were even like, I'm talking about like just like consistently scoring points. I'm not talking about, dominating the world. I'm not talking about like the last time it was like probably late 90s or dominating the world, but yeah, I expect more from a brand like that, from a legendary brand. Same as I expect from McLaren. I at least expect McLaren results from a team like Williams, right?
I mean, they have a ways to go to get back to that. They still got a ways to go to get back to that, but
it's like when the
definitely
Knicks
trending
in
a better direction.
It's not good for the sport for Williams not to be good and not to be competitive, in my opinion.
I would agree with that. I'd say the same thing that, Ferrari's not super competitive. I think that's bad for the sport too.
I think it's very good for the sport when Ferrari is very competitive, and Ferrari and Mercedes and Red Bull are all competing. Yeah, parity is very good for the sport, because 5 years ago, everyone was whining and crying about how dominant Lewis Hamilton was, and now everyone's crying about how dominant Max Verstappen is. So, we want a new champ. You got a new champ. We don't like that new champ.
That leads to my next and final news story for you.
Ooh, final news story.
Lewis Hamilton came out today and said, or over the weekend, and said there's perhaps a date there should be that all teams then start to work on next year's car. I think he said around August 1st or something like that, teams can start than working on the car for next season. Max Verstappen came back and said, well, he wasn't saying that when they were winning all those titles. So what's your thoughts on that idea?
Lewis Hamilton is very competitive, and Lewis Hamilton brings a different vibe than Max Verstappen does. If you noticed, and I've actually thought about this today, if you noticed, every single time when Lewis came in after the race and was there with the podium drivers and in the cool down room, and he was heated. He was always came in there heated. When it was him and Nico, they were always heated at the end of those races, no matter what was going on. They couldn't look at each other in the eye. It was heated. And now you have three guys were sitting down, and it was much cooler. And I think the I don't know. I think the temperature of Formula One is much cooler. And I think Lewis Hamilton started a couple years ago. When he cooled down, but I don't know.
What's your thought what's your thought on Lewis's thought? If you can't work on next year's car until August 1st.
I think Lewis Hamilton is hyper competitive. I think Lewis Hamilton is hyper competitive. That's it. And I think he's going to find every edge and everything he possibly can to win a race. And I think Max Verstappen has a different vibe about it, and but Lewis is also he's ending his career.
I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to jump in here because you're totally missing the whole thing. I actually like the idea that you have a set date that you start working on next year's car, because then you're not going to have teams that in the last couple of years like Haas and Alfa Romeo and say Williams was doing it too for a bit, that they would quit working on the current car and start working on the next year's car. So it'll stop teams from doing that. I think it might even bring more of an even playing field kind of thing, because then teams will start working at the cars at the same point. Maybe that'll bring some more, different winners and things like that. But Red Bull still got Adrian Newey, so is that really going to make a major difference? To be honest, because the man's just brilliant about designing a car. But I think it might bring a little bit, maybe a chance of some little bit more parity if you say teams can't start working on the car, next year's car, until a certain point in the season. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, I think as long as everyone's on an even playing field. I just think that Lewis Hamilton's hyper competitive, and he's constantly thinking of ways to get ahead, and working on the car starting August 1st is a way for an advantage. But if they're doing that, if Mercedes is doing that, then everyone's doing that. I don't think it's any advantage at all. I don't know.
We'll say all teams. You can't do anything. You can't start designing your.
I think you should be able to design 5 years ahead of now. I think you should be able to have a business plan for the next 4, 5, 10 years. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's the smartest thing to do. Have a business plan. That's a business plan.
Well, yeah, but regs and things are going to change, so you can't go that far ahead anyway.
You can have a plan A, B, C, D, E, and F. Maybe a plan G. That's what you do when you're running $1 billion company.
Well, I understand this.
All right. Anyway, these are great questions. That was in the news. Anything else in the news?
That's all I got for you.
That's all I got.
Thanks for bringing some stories yourself this week.
Glad I can fill my notebook for you.
Thanks for coming to work.
Thanks for coming to work. I barely showed up. Barely showed up. Don't call it quiet quitting. All right. We will be back. When will we be back? Where will we be going next?
See you in a week. Silverstone, baby.
Silverstone. It's time for one of the best races of the year.
I love Silverstone. It's a classic track.
The OG, the original.
It's classic. Fast. One of my favorite tracks to drive in the game, too. So it's a good time. Great. Good layout. Love it.
Well, don't miss all the action. We will see you in 7 days after Silverstone. Say what you got to say, brother.
As always, my friends, we'll see you in a week. Stay medicated, as always.
Peace.